I am
Hello.
here with Heather Tweedie. My name is Dr. Liz. I'm a chiropractor in Bend, Oregon. Thank you. I know we're just a couple minutes behind technology tricks today, but in person, Heather Tweedie. So excited to talk to you guys and to just kind of sit down and spend some time with you.
Yeah.
So tell us.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us about you, who you are.
Well,
what you do.
I live here in Bend. We moved here about 5 years ago. I have 3 beautiful girls, and I've been home with them until recently, so I'm just re-entering the workforce. And I am a postpartum doula as well as a pediatric occupational therapist.
I love it. So much to talk about today. And Heather and I were just like talking before. There are so many directions because of the resources that Heather has really for our community. But we're going to be focusing on doula support. In my mind, and I work really closely with the birth community, doula is such a broad term, and you are specifically a postpartum doula. So I kind of want to kick it off. Tell me the difference between like prenatal birth doula and then just postpartum. What does that look like? What do you do?
So a prenatal or a birth doula is there to support you in the process prenatally, be with you during labor, whereas a postpartum doula comes after you've had your baby and you're home. We come and provide support for the mom. We nurture the mom. We support dad. We help with sibling adjustment. So if you could just imagine,
Love it.
You're a few days home from the hospital, if that's where you birthed, and you're quietly sleeping with your baby, and all of a sudden the postpartum doula quietly enters the home. Dad's with the toddler. The doula lets dad go back to sleep. Doula then makes a meal for the toddler, maybe preps a meal for mom and dad when they get up. Some light housekeeping, like we expect to walk into a house and there is a pile of laundry, dishes in the sink, dishwasher full, stuff everywhere, spit up on everyone's clothes. Like that is the environment we expect to walk into. And so then let's say mom gets up. So then we're there to make sure she's hydrated and fed. If she has any questions about nursing or any questions really about just caring for her newborn, checking in with mom, making sure she's healing properly. And if there's any red flags there, we're referring out. And also mom's mental health, making sure that, the typical baby blues is about 2 to 3 weeks. But if that continues after that time, then again, I'd be referring out. A big part of being a doula is sharing community resources, making sure that they are getting the help and support they need, and knowing what our community offers to be able to refer them.
Yeah, huge. I had coffee with Heather maybe like a month ago, and we talked all about postpartum, and that's when I was like, we have to do a webinar. People need to know. One reason is for the resources, because you work postpartum, but you also specialize in NICU babies.
Yeah.
So that's going to look a lot different. And I think I was talking with a friend, and sometimes when scary things happen, like birth is a huge transition period, and nobody wants to spend time in the NICU, but it's also a great time, like pre-giving birth, to say like, okay, worst case scenario, maybe we spend a couple more days in the hospital for a number of reasons, or if you had to transfer for any reason from the birth center or home, just to get a little extra support. Heather would be someone who very much specializes in NICU. Another reason why I wanted to have you so that people could see your face. So what do those resources look like for NICU? Because that's going to be a different type of visit.
That is going to be different. And so just to start off, when talking about postpartum support for babies that have been in the NICU, it may seem completely overwhelming when you get home from the NICU and you've had this constant support
Mm.
and this huge team helping you keep your baby thriving and healthy and ready for discharge. And so the last thing you're thinking about is another person, another appointment, another thing you think you have to prepare for. But I cannot stress this enough. I have ran into this roadblock with every NICU family, but once I am in the home, it is so beneficial. Your anxiety as a parent and the trauma you've just been through of whatever the situation looks like and your baby needed a little more help, or maybe your baby came home with a feeding tube or on oxygen. And so your nervous system is so heightened and overwhelmed that bringing in someone to support and nurture you is so important. Making sure you have meals, making sure you're hydrated, handing out the community resources, like connecting you with the health department. They've got a great program that comes and will check on mom and baby. And you don't even have to go anywhere. Different resources as a variety of things can come up. And I'm here to point you in the right direction with those resources. But also having a background as a pediatric occupational therapist, I'm also a feeding therapist. So if you have a baby that is coming home on a feeding tube and maybe not all of their feeds are on a feeding tube and some of them are oral, I can direct you in how to do that, because when you're leaving the hospital and you have all these discharge instructions, it's hard to keep everything in place.
Yeah.
And so I'm there to help with feeding. These babies that come out early, and even our regular babies, not all babies are ready for earthside, even when born at 40 weeks.
Yeah.
So they may just have a little more difficult of an adjustment to being earthside, and they may present as being more fussy and hard to console, or you're having that difficulty feeding, not because structurally they can't do it. It's just that they're so overwhelmed with all of our environmental input that they are having a hard time organizing to be able to settle down and focus on that feed. So I am there to help you organize your baby so your feeds are successful. And the more you practice that motor pattern, the easier it becomes for those babies.
Yeah. And something we look at too, I love that you're touching on this, is the primitive reflexes, which is just right up your alley. We, our work, I think, really complements each other.
Totally.
Because those primitive reflexes, they're life. Like a lot of people are like, oh, is this a successful feed or not? We're looking at, are these nerves firing or not? And is it integrating or not? Because those are two very important things to set your child up for life. Yeah,
and
so
especially
work too.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Especially with bottle feeding. If your baby is being bottle fed, it's really instinctual for a parent to not stimulate those reflexes prior to the feed, to just get them positioned and put the bottle in their mouth. But you really need to work on making those reflexes stronger, touching the side of their mouth so they root for the bottle, letting them pull the bottle in their mouth so they're working on that sucking reflex. Because at 4 months, those oral reflexes that are for feeding become volitional, meaning that they are now part of a cognitive motor process, whereas before they were automatic. So it's really important to make sure those reflexes are firing, like Dr. Liz said.
Yeah, huge things. So I know this is the beautiful thing about Heather, everyone, is you can start like your services, they interweave so much, but I love that you have, like, as a postpartum doula, you have all of this knowledge where you're like, okay, this is something more going on. But I want to go back to your postpartum doula. So with these visits, what I'm hearing you say is like, you're really just like the go-to person that's going to keep somebody's life on track.
Totally.
And do a lot of the organizing. How often is a visit?
Depends on you guys. So it depends on what kind of package, what level of support you're looking for. But the first visit will start prenatally, and I will come to your house and we will go over Setting up your feeding station, making sure you have everything you need there so that when you are there, you can focus solely on feeding your baby. Setting up a sleep environment, whichever you choose, we get that set up and rolling for when the baby comes. And then we go over a pretty extensive postpartum plan, looking at the different roles of the people living in the household, looking at pulling in their supports from the community, friends and family, churches, and really looking at ways that we can maximize support for the family. And it's not just mom and the family, because it's important for dad and siblings to be able to bond with this baby just as much as it's important for mom. So giving them that space and time is really important.
And you have 3 kiddos. So you know the transition. And if you've come into this office, I talk about being a middle child, middle of 5. And it's a big transition with siblings. And it's tricky, especially like 1 to 2. It's a big deal.
It is. And another thing I've been doing is I have a car full of toys for my occupational therapy home visits. Cool. And so when I come into a home for postpartum doula that has a toddler, I will bring in, or an older child, I will bring in some of my toys. So it's like the novelty of new toys. Then I'm giving them that attention that they're seeking. And then there are ways for me to include the child in baby care. And I have a little baby carrier that the little toddlers can practice and put their babies in so they can be like cute. Mom. And so just really getting them involved as much as possible and making them feel important during this transition.
I love it. I know I told you this at the coffee shop. I'm like, if I could choose anyone in my life to organize my life, it would definitely be you. I'm like, please organize my entire calendar.
Oh my gosh.
But okay, so it kind of varies. What's in visit? Do you usually see like people once a week or twice a week? Because I know, especially with NICU, it will really vary a lot.
It usually depends on finances, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
So if you have OHP, I am able to use your flex funds for up to 15 hours of postpartum support. And then, so typically we're in anywhere from 1 to 3 or 4 days a week, depending on the amount of support mom is looking for. And a typical home visit is no less than 3 hours and you than about 5.
Okay.
So it's like at 3 hours, you still kind of feel like there's a lot to do and a lot going on and making sure everyone is settled and happy and nourished.
It is a lot. Baby time.
Yep.
Baby TV. It's a big thing. Okay. That gives me a better idea. And then with your OT services, I know you've been doing this for over 20 years. And then jumping back in, which I applaud you. That's a big shift. I know your girls. They're amazing. They're so fun. They're so cool. And it's a big transition to go from mama to working and mom. So what does that look like? Because you go to people's homes for OT as well.
So I do home visits for mainly 0 to 5 population. I can also go to daycares or if a nanny's house, if they're somewhere else. But I like to be there with the parent because it's important for the parent to understand what we're working on and how to carry these things over at home and just simple play activities. So I see a lot of kids with sensory processing challenges. When you're looking at the younger population, babies or toddlers that are not meeting their motor milestones, babies that are having difficulty feeding, hard to console, have torticollis, which is the shortening of the neck muscle, or your babies with flat head, plagiocephaly. So those are the babies that I see a lot of. And also moms that have postpartum depression. So looking at, babies react and learn from their caregivers, on their spectrum of emotion. And if you have postpartum depression, you may not be stimulating your baby as much because of your mental health. Or if you have postpartum anxiety, it may be completely overwhelming. So like working with moms to help figure out how to communicate with their babies while they're working on their anxiety or their depression, and seeing someone for that as well.
Yeah, it's a big thing, the anxiety, depression.
I know.
So if someone's wanting to reach out to you, do you have a website? Do you prefer email? What's your method?
I have a website. My company is called Pediatric Village Home Care. Cool. And that is the website, www.pediatricvillage.com. And then how do you want to, so I have phone, email.
Yeah. I'll add Heather's website on our Facebook. I'll just add it in the comments. That way we can get all the spelling right.
Okay. Yep. And the contact, you can use a contact form on there, or we'll add email and phone number as well.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
I love it. I know, I want to highlight too, if you've been following us for a while, you may know we're moving to a new space this calendar year, kind of up in the air as with most contracts. You just don't know when all the construction will be done. But we'll have a community space, and Heather's going to be available. At some point, we'll teach a class that's like baby wearing, how to find. I mean, there are so many different wraps. And each baby is different.
Yeah.
And then it gets confusing. I mean, I don't have kids yet, but full-time auntie, and I get handed this like giant wrap that's like 5 lengths of me.
Yep.
Yeah. So we're going to have that. And then, there are so many other things. Infant massage, you mentioned. There are so many things that we can do.
Yeah.
That would be so fun.
Just all these different ways to connect with your baby. And speaking of like baby wearing or infant massage, that's a lot of ways how I support partner too. Is, if they're not the main person feeding the baby and they want to be bonded and interacting more with their baby, those are some tools and skin to skin that I can use to support the partner so they can have those lovely moments with your little nugget.
Yeah. As mamas, I mean, you get 9 months. You get 9+ months. And then this baby enters the world, and you kind of have this feel of like who this baby is. And you're like, oh yeah, I felt that. I felt those kicks. I felt that personality. I know. I have one mama who is like listening to Elton John, and she's like, my baby already loves Elton John. And I mean, it's amazing. And then husbands are just not like completely out of the loop, but it takes a little bit more time. And having those strategies for them to like feel included and to feel close. And
because it's so important. Love is so important for brain development and connection. It's forever. It's imperative.
Forever, really. Anything else you want to share with us? Well, everyone should look at her baby whisperer. I love it.
Professional baby whisperer, postpartum doula.
That's the best. Anything else you want to say to our community, or to wrap up? Anything we may have like brushed over?
I don't think so.
This has been awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for our people to really put a face to the name.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah. And thanks, everyone. You can feel free to reach out to us if you have any other questions. Again, I'm going to put Heather's website on the comments section. And we look forward to seeing you in person very soon, hopefully by October, to do some of these fun community events where we just get together face to face and get tangled and work on all of those baby wraps together.
It's way easier when you practice it a few times.
Well, have an amazing day. Thanks again, Heather.
All right. Bye.